Alright, hello everyone and welcome to WWE Discussion. I'm your host and WWE enthusiast Doug, and today's episode I'm going to be discussing Fastlane 2023 edition. And I would say overall Fastlane was a hit. Might not have had a whole lot of buzz going into it. It is a minor pay-per-view compared to others. But it had a 5-match card. Every match felt like it had adequate time and delivered in its own way. And with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with the Tag Team Championship Match, Judgment Day versus Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. And JD McDonough's quest to prove himself at Judgment Day hit its latest roadblock on Saturday night as he, accidentally hit the injured knee of Damian Priest with the Money in the Bank briefcase, which allowed Cody Rhodes to deliver the crossroads on an announce table, then join Jey Uso in the ring to drop Finn Balor of a 1D to win the titles. That all came about at the end of a long, red-hot title bout that saw Uso and Rhodes set aside their differences and accomplished the goal of dethroning the champions at the top of the show. Strong in-ring action, hindered only by a runtime that stretched some of the spots thinner than necessary. Still a solid start to the show. More importantly, allows the descent within the Judgment Day to escalate, especially as Balor is likely to defend his protege McDonough at the expense of his relationship with Priest. So yes, Judgment Day drops the titles, which does raise the question of what happens with the current storyline of Judgment Day versus everyone. Does that storyline still continue? Or do we shift back focus to the whole dissension within the Judgment Day storyline as well? Do we mix both? Do we intertwine both stories? And how about Rhodes and Uso, a makeshift tag team, now the tag team champions? How long does that last? I guess we shall see. Triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship, Io Sky versus Asuka versus Charlotte Flair, and desperate to maintain her role as leader of Damage Control, Bayley would ignore Io Sky's request to stay in the back and directly involve herself in the closing moments of the bout. However, unlike recent instances, the interference worked in Sky's favor this time around, with Bayley providing a distraction that took the referee's attention away from Asuka tapping out to the figure eight. Sky would then launch herself on the top rope with a picture-perfect moonsault and pin Flair to successfully retain her title. The match was good, and the involvement of Bayley late was essential to the story at play, but the action did become somewhat disjointed along the way, but the combatants recovered and executed the finish to perfection. There probably will be an argument made coming out of this that Flair had Asuka tapped out and thus should be champion. It's a lame story, but it is logical. Sky will also probably be questioning Bayley's interference despite a request that she did not, even if it helped her retain. So, talk about dissension to the Judgment Day. What about this insurance and Damage Control? Is that going to be rearing its head once again? And is Charlotte Flair going to be hanging around the title picture once more? Probably, knowing it's Charlotte Flair. Not to say that's a bad thing. Charlotte Flair is a great in-ring competitor, but despite her greatness, there is such thing as being around too much. So yeah, those two stories, Damage Control and Flair, will intertwine somehow, and be curious to see how WWE does it. And Asuka, for the moment she's out of title contention, and she heads down to NXT on Tuesday night to battle Roxanne Perez. John Cena and LA Knight versus Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. This was a huge win for Knight, and perhaps we will have LA Knight versus Roman Reigns loading. So this was a good match to highlight Night, in which the megastar teamed with Cena to defeat Sikoa and Uso. Cena took the majority of the heat, selling for the bloodline before the red hot take the night, which popped the crowd and led to a great home stretch. Despite Cena getting in some of his moves towards the end, it was Knight who would hit the blunt force trauma and secure the win. In his biggest test to date, Knight would pass with flying colors. His performance lived up to the moment. He was as fired up as the fans were, and the result was one of those defining showings that his supporters will be able to point to as evidence that he can handle the pressure-packed situations that come with being one of the top good guys in the company. Up next for Knight, based solely on what happened leading into the show, the win, and the backstage confrontation with Paul Heyman, the answer seems to be they won a one-on-one showdown with Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. Now, the question is, if that match is loading, does it happen at Crown Jewel, or does it happen at Survivor Series? So that will be the question and answer there. And as for Cena, well, if you saw the promotional packages for her Crown Jewel, you saw Cena featured on there, so it's more likely than not Cena's going to be competing at Crown Jewel. But who will he compete against? There are rumors to state that WWE might try to run it back with Cena versus Reigns at Crown Jewel, and I would like to state for the record, do not do that. That is a lame matchup for Crown Jewel. We already saw it at SummerSlam. You know Cena's going to lose. Don't even bother. Instead, I would say, if you're not going to do Reigns versus Knight at Crown Jewel, I would actually even say hold off on Knight versus Reigns. Save it until Survivor Series, and then have Jimmy Uso versus Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel. Do that instead. Find something else for Cena. I'm sure that you can. Last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And Rollins settled his differences with Nakamura in grand fashion, defeating the artist in a wild, chaotic last man standing match that spilled throughout the arena and culminated with the Visionary delivering a Falcon Arrow through a table on the floor. Rollins would fight through the pain in his back and establish himself as the Workman's Champion. The feud between these two is over at this point because Rollins has taken everything Nakamura had and beat him both times. Trying to run it back for a third time would not make any sense, and let's be real here, it probably isn't going to happen anyway. And also, would anybody buy into a third match? The talent's there, but the interest is not. As for who might be next for Rollins, well, it's kind of a toss-up at the moment. Judgment Day is still very much lurking around, but could Priest have an interaction with Roman Reigns in his return to SmackDown? Maybe, depends on how much time WWE's looking to waste on Friday night. But yeah, be curious to see who steps up to Raw next. Maybe it's Gunther, maybe it's Bronson Reed. There are some interesting possibilities on that Raw roster. Yeah, so I guess we shall see what's next for Rollins and for Shinsuke Nakamura. It is a shame he was not able to emerge victorious here. I understand the decision to stick with Rollins, but it would be nice to see Nakamura win a world title at some point, although after this latest setback you have to wonder if that time will ever come. So in conclusion, for a show that didn't have an abundance of buzz surrounding it, Fastlane would exceed expectations and deliver another quality night of professional wrestling that peaked with LA Knight's victory. Both featured great stuff with Seth Rollins, the SmackDown Women's Division, the returning Carlito, and the Undisputed Tag Team Championship match. The smaller card allowed for more time for each match, and despite the lengthier contest, the crowd was invested throughout, proving that the crowd remained red hot throughout, proving their investment into competitors and stories involved. Trying to figure out how to word that. Didn't work out the first time, got it the second time. And with that will conclude this episode of WWE Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.